The world's #1 tennis player, a reigning 3-time Grand Slam champion, suspended from the sport for a banned anabolic steroid? This isn't a forgotten headline from a dark era of sports. It's the shocking reality that threatened to completely derail the meteoric rise of Jannik Sinner, the man who was in the middle of one of the most dominant periods in tennis history. His legacy was on the verge of being poisoned before it could truly be celebrated. The question wasn't just whether he could come back, but whether the cloud of suspicion would ever truly lift. How did he not only survive this career-threatening crisis, but emerge stronger, more dominant, and finally conquer the one rival who seemed to hold the psychological key to defeating him? Today, we're dissecting one of the most incredible stories of resilience and redemption in modern sports. We'll uncover the granular details of the scandal that cast a dark shadow over his achievements. We will relive the series of heartbreaking, soul-crushing defeats that forged his champion's mentality, and we'll explore why his epic rivalry with Carlos Alcaraz is destined to define the very soul of tennis for the next decade. This is the story of how Jannik Sinner walked through fire and rose from the ashes. It all began on a glitzy, starry night in New York, September 2022. The stage was the US Open quarterfinal, a match that would instantly become tennis folklore. On one side of the net stood Carlos Alcaraz, the Spanish prodigy, a teenager who played with the explosive joy of a veteran champion. He was already the more pedigreed, having built up to that stage by conquering the Miami Masters and, most impressively, the Madrid Masters. There, in the Spanish capital, he had achieved the unthinkable, beating Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic back-to-back, a statement performance that sent shockwaves through the tennis world. He was the anointed one, the heir apparent to the throne. On the other side was Jannik Sinner, the quiet, flame-haired Italian, ranked outside the top 10. A prodigious talent, certainly, but one who had a combined record of 0 wins and 5 losses against Nadal and Djokovic. He was the challenger, the underdog. For 5 hours and 15 grueling minutes, under the intense, unforgiving lights of Arthur Ashe Stadium, these two young titans waged a war of attrition and artistry. The match stretched deep into the New York night, finishing at an astonishing 2:50 a.m. local time, the latest finish in US Open history. Alcaraz won, collapsing to the court in a heap of joyous exhaustion. He would go on to win the entire tournament, bagging his maiden slam and becoming the youngest men's world #1 in history. The world rightly hailed the new king, but lost in the din of Alcaraz's coronation was a devastatingly cruel detail. In that titanic struggle, Jannik Sinner had held a match point in the 4th set. He was a single, solitary swing of the racket away from victory, 1 point away from completely rewriting the narrative. He was also up a break in the deciding 5th set. He had been so close, yet so agonizingly far. It was a brutal loss, a hint of a painful pattern that would come to haunt him. Fast forward almost 3 years. The stage is now the hollowed, unforgiving clay of Roland Garros, the French Open final. Once again, it's Sinner versus Alcaraz. By now, the landscape has shifted. Sinner is a major champion himself, the reigning Australian Open winner, a dominant force who has finally claimed the world #1 ranking. But in the biggest moments against his generational rival, the ghosts of New York still lingered. In that Paris final, a match of staggering physical intensity that lasted 5.5 hours, Sinner didn't just have one chance to win, he had 3. 3 separate championship points to claim the coveted Musketeers Cup, the pinnacle of clay court tennis. And one by one, they slipped through his fingers like grains of red sand. Alcaraz, with his signature blend of impossible defense and audacious shot-making, clawed his way back from the brink and stole the title. It was more than a defeat. It was a psychological scar, deeper and more painful than the last. To lose to your greatest rival is one thing. To lose from match point down is another. But to lose a Grand Slam final after having 3 championship points, that is the kind of loss that can break an athlete's spirit for good. It's a cruel story of almosts and what-ifs. If you can feel the sheer tension and the high stakes of this incredible rivalry, do me a quick favor and hit that like button. It truly helps our channel bring more deep dive stories like this one to you. The losses to Alcaraz were brutal, But they weren't even the darkest chapter in Sinner's recent journey. In mid-February of this year, just as his star was reaching its zenith, the tennis world was rocked by a seismic news bulletin. Sinner was suspended for 3 months. The reason? Traces of a banned anabolic steroid, clostebol, had been found in his system from 2 positive tests conducted in March of 2024. Though a case resolution agreement with the World Anti-Doping Agency, or WADA, ultimately cleared him of intentional doping, concluding the traces were negligible, the damage to his reputation was immediate and severe. The word steroid was now attached to his name, a scarlet letter in a sport obsessed with purity. Many players, both past and present, were vocal in their criticism. They thought he had gotten away lightly, that the entire situation reeked of favoritism towards one of the sport's biggest stars. Through all the whispers and accusations, Sinner had to sit on the sidelines, watching the tour he once dominated move on without him. Imagine being at the absolute peak of your powers, the undisputed #1 player on the planet, and being forced to stop, your every achievement suddenly viewed through a lens of suspicion. This is where the story should have cratered. A devastating series of losses to his rival, capped off by a public doping scandal. It's a recipe for a complete and total collapse. But this is where Jannik Sinner proved he is built from something different. Because through all of this turmoil, he was quietly compiling one of the greatest 18-month periods in the entire history of the sport. Let's look at the numbers, because they are simply staggering. Starting in January of 2024, Sinner has a win-loss record of 99-9. That is a winning percentage over 91%, a figure that puts him in the rarefied air of John McEnroe in his prime. He won 10 tour-level titles, he led Italy to a historic defense of the Davis Cup, and he held the world #1 ranking for 58 consecutive weeks, starting from June 10, 2024. He became the holder of 3 of the 4 Grand Slams. The fact that he remained the world's best-ranked player, even through his suspension, shows the astronomical level he had reached. His current ATP points tally of 12,030 is nearly double that of the world #3, Alexander Zverev. This wasn't just dominance, it was a statistical rewriting of the tennis hierarchy. After his eventual return and the Wimbledon triumph, Sinner himself gave a glimpse into the struggle. He said, quote, "It's been very emotional, even if I don't cry. It feels emotional because only me and the people who are close to me know exactly what we have been through on and off the court. It has been everything except easy. We've tried to push through every practice session, even when I was struggling at times mentally. Maybe I struggled even more in practice sessions because I feel like when I play the match, I can switch off and just play." That statement reveals so much. The pressure, the mental anguish, it was all happening behind the scenes. Every practice was a battle against his own mind. And that brings us to the ultimate redemption, Wimbledon. 1 month after the gut-wrenching heartbreak in Paris, Sinner and Alcaraz met again. Another Grand Slam final. The 5th consecutive major final for Sinner, a feat of consistency in itself. But this time, something was different. This was not just another match. This was his moment to exercise all his demons on the most sacred ground in tennis. He was facing the man who had handed him 5 straight defeats, the man who had snatched 2 Grand Slam titles from his grasp, the man whose shadow had loomed over his career. And this time, Sinner did not falter. In 4 brilliant, controlled, and powerful sets, he beat Carlos Alcaraz to win his maiden Wimbledon title. The relief was palpable. It was the ideal balm for his hurting soul. As his coach, the legendary Darren Cahill put it, quote, "It was important for many, many reasons. Carlos had the wood over him for the last 5 matches. He knew the importance of closing this one out when he had the opportunities. And close it out he did. The victory was a powerful statement. It proved he could beat his rival on the biggest stage. It solidified his status as a true all-round player, a champion on the hard courts of Australia, and now the hallowed grass of Wimbledon, a surface he was not considered a natural on. He had conquered his mind, his rival, and the immense weight of expectation. This win also magnified the fascinating core of this new era, the clash of styles. It's a dynamic that echoes the legendary rivalries of the past, most notably Federer versus Nadal. Alcaraz is the artist, a maestro of improvisational jazz. His court is a canvas for flair, invention, and free-spirited creativity. He plays with a joyful abandon, feeding off the crowd's energy, teasing opponents with breathtaking drop shots and explosive power. Sinner, on the other hand, is the surgeon, conducting a symphony of brutal, metronomic efficiency. His game is built on razor-sharp focus, methodical precision, and relentless, controlled aggression. His ground strokes are flat, powerful, and penetrating, like laser-guided missiles that shrink the court. Where Alcaraz is emotional and expressive, Sinner is a picture of calm intensity. It's the magician versus the machine. This contrast is what makes their matches must-see television, a rivalry that pushes both men to evolve. Darren Cahill revealed, Jannik watches more Carlos matches than he does of anybody else. He's fascinated with the improvements that are coming in his game, and he's pushing us as coaches to make sure that he's improving as a tennis player as well. So the rivalry is real, and hopefully it's going to be there and real for the next 10 or 12 years. This is the kind of battle for supremacy that will keep us glued to our screens for years to come. If you want to follow every twist and turn of this incredible era in tennis, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. So, what is the legacy of Jannik Sinner? His story is one of rising like a phoenix. He faced the brink of disaster with a doping scandal that could have ended everything. He endured crushing defeats that would have psychologically broken lesser athletes. And yet, he channeled all of it into fuel. He didn't just come back. He came back and became an undeniable, history-making champion. He stared into the abyss and didn't even blink. He took the pain, the doubts, and the heartbreak and forged it into a champion's crown at Wimbledon. The boy who nearly won in New York has become the man who cannot be beaten. And as he and Alcaraz prepare to battle for the soul of tennis for the next decade, one thing is certain. We are witnessing the birth of a legend, a testament to the power of resilience in the face of unimaginable pressure.